Welcome to the Helm Developer Call. It is January 28th, 2021. Today, I'm first going to look to Mr. Farina for telling us about any excitement related to the 3.5.1 milestone in progress.
I guess the only excitement is we're going to cut a 3.5.1 more quickly. That's just a rebuild of the existing 3.5.0, but with the new version of Go. I'm going to try and do that today. I know it's outside of our normal Wednesday window, but Butcher and I chatted about it this morning, and it's probably a good idea. And so it'll be literally just 3.5.0 with the rebuilt version of Go for these security updates.
Okay, so we're going to call it 3.5.1 so we don't give anyone an unpleasant surprise.
Exactly.
But
so,
we won't put the milestone items that we are working on for patches in, just the Go rebuild.
Yep. And then the existing 3.5.1 will become 3.5.2.
Fantastic. I imagine we'll get those milestones moved around then.
Yeah. And I have not looked at anything in there, so I can't talk about it. I've been dealing with other things.
Of course. Wonderful. All right. Do we have any other announcements before we move on to discussion items? Okay, I'm going to give people who aren't here a few minutes to get here to talk about their discussion items. Oh, Corinna.
Yes. I just wondered if you wanted to announce the book that it seems like a couple people wrote.
Oh, that is a very, very good call out. People did, in fact, write a book, and at least 2 of the 3 people who wrote that book happen to be on this call. Would you like to, Corinna, would you like to tell us which book are you talking about?
There's some new Learn Helm book that looks like it could be interesting.
Excellent.
So I'd love to, if Matt and Josh want to talk about it, I mean, I'd love to hear.
Awesome. Hey, Matt. Hey, Josh. What's in this book and why should people read it?
I'm muted. It's a book about Helm. It's a book that just covers an introduction to Helm, like what is it and how do you use it? Where does it sit in the thing within the CNCF landscape? And then how do you use the commands of Helm? And then the first 3 chapters give you the setup and talk about using Helm, so you can figure out how do you fit it into your tooling and your tool chain and where do you go. Then we go into 3 chapters on charts, and then a couple of chapters that deal with registries and plugins, and then an appendix on things like differences with chart. There's a couple of appendixes that deal with things like difference between Helm v2 charts and Helm v3 charts, things like that. I'll give the O'Reilly link to that. Josh and I both worked on it with Matt Butcher. Paper versions of it should be coming soon. I don't know the exact date.
Excellent.
It just went to publication start of this week, end of last week. So it takes a little while for them to get to it. Or maybe it is available now. All right.
Awesome.
I don't know what else to say. It's a kind of a general book. So if you're already a Helm guru, it's probably not going to help you. But if you're new to Helm or you're trying to figure stuff out, we cover a lot of stuff.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So to our discussion items, I see Joe Julian is with us, and he was interested in discussing storage improvements. Hey, Joe, what do you want to talk about?
Hello.
And do you have a link to an issue that you can drop in the chat?
No.
Anything else?
I don't think I have an issue. Maybe there was an issue. I'd have to find it.
Oh, okay.
I think.
But what's on your mind?
Oh, we were just talking about. So currently, we talked about before that everything is stored as config maps or secrets, and they can potentially be very large. And if you have something automated that's doing your deployments, and you don't limit the number of the amount of history, you could potentially have gigabytes of data that when you try to list your secrets will kill your control plane.
Yeah. Helm to add context for folks here, Helm v3, unless you change it, I believe limits you to a history of 10 items, and then it cleans up old items unless your stuff is failing, because if you just keep trying to install over and over and over and it just fails over and over and over, that's where you can run into a problem of it not garbage collecting, because we want to leave those failure logs around. There's been a number of there's a discussion on that in the issue queue, although I have not followed it to know where it's at. But if your system just keeps installing, failing, that's probably not a good thing for your system not to catch that or to react. So that's what's going on. As far as large storage, some more context. Helm used to use config maps back in the day before secrets were GA. And one of the things, we looked at other systems for Helm v3, but we want Helm to be usable out of the box, right? And so without being able to require something else there that you have to install first, and to deal with environments where people don't have cluster admin access, right? I'm limited to my defined namespaces with my defined criteria, and I've got to install and run things. And maybe I've got a few namespaces. And so our out of the box experience, we want to just work and not raise that barrier to entry. And so that's why we use secrets, because it's simple, it's there, it just works. If you use something like CRDs, that's a cluster extension. A lot of people don't have access to install those in the clusters where they want to use Helm. And so we didn't want to force that restriction on people. Even when we had V2 and we had Tiller, that's the reason you had Helm local show up, because people didn't even have permission to install Tiller. And there were a lot of people who wanted to use Helm anyway. And so our base experience needs to be able to handle that. But we know that there are cases where people want to do more and install a lot of things, which is why we have that pluggable storage mechanism. And our second thing is you can use Postgres for that. You have to run it and set it up, and it takes more work. And so it's not our out of the box experience, but you can use Postgres as your storage mechanism and scale far beyond what you can do with something like secrets. Now, what can we do for that to change up from secrets that also works for that use case of, I don't have access to do these things, or I just want that first run experience to just work and be simple without all this setup and overhead and changing namespaces and where do you store it if you've got Postgres. Just make it like, that's where I actually don't have any ideas off the top of my head, but if people have ideas, that would be great to talk about.
So one of the ideas I had that I thought might satisfy the requirements you laid out. So the problem as it exists is, if you do a list in a namespace of secrets, etcd returns the entire data set. Especially if you have multiple things doing the query, and before the previous query can time out or finish, nothing gets cached, so it's actually going to pull that entire data set many times, sometimes many times in a second. One way to reduce that complexity is to have maybe split the secrets into two parts. One part would be the secret, or maybe in a config map and secret. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking if you split the manifest into its own object and can put that in a different namespace, or I know sometimes people don't have access to multiple namespaces, but even if you split it between config map and secret, config map just stores the metadata for the Helm release, and then the secret stores the actual manifest data. Maybe that could be an improvement.
So let's think about this for a sec. So where would your values go? Would that go in the metadata about it?
I mean, you put the secret stuff into a secret, obviously.
Okay, yeah.
And then the other would just be a reference to it. Anyway, that's just brainstorming on the top of my head.
So you're trying to think of
Right,
ways
so
to
stuff
limit the amount of
from-
secret traffic.
Yeah. Because once you know what secret has the actual data you need, you no longer have to do a list. You can do a fetch. So the get will just return the one that you need, and you don't end up overloading the API servers.
I did see a GitHub issue on I'm not sure if this is the one you're referring to, Joe, where we did discuss about splitting the manifest, the entire content into config map and secrets, where the stuff in secret could be essentially the user specific data, which is not Helm metadata. Let me try to find it. But yeah,
Yeah.
Can I ask a question before we continue? The I'm curious in here because what it seems to me is that we are talking about how can we move Helm's runtime data around, right? So this is what we're talking about. We stored runtime data in Kubernetes under secrets or in Postgres under some other data format, right? And we are discussing how can we make it less miserable than using Postgres directly if you don't want a limitation that secrets on Kubernetes might have. Is this what we're discussing? Because if this is the case, then it's about how do we make the user store this data, whatever, right? Because so for example, the data that we store in the secrets in Kubernetes is because there's nothing a little bit better, right? This is ubiquitous and you have data in there, it's sort of secure and stuff like that. You have other options, right? Without going directly to Kubernetes CRDs, right? You could think on a progression from can we store Helm runtime configuration in, for example, SQLite, and embed this into a local database, for example? Then you could think on embed this into another application on the cluster itself to provide configuration for a particular namespace. And then you would go to the enterprise where basically then you could have the same application integrated as a, for example, aggregated API server, right? That would be similar interface, right? It's the same service, different points.
So a few things there, right? Like an aggregated API server or CRDs or any of those kinds of things in the enterprise. It was actually the enterprise who wanted us to have that simpler format, so you didn't have to install extra things, because then you immediately have to get buy-in from your ops department or whoever's running your cluster. And lots of the
I'm
people
just
who run stuff, yeah,
I'm sorry, I'm just pointing out that
yeah.
there are several use cases and they are independent, right? So for example, if I had to manage a Kubernetes installation with a Helm installation that would span across whatever many clusters we have, then I would want a more tight integration with the platform itself. But me as a developer that is trying to do something on GCP, right? I do agree that perhaps I don't even want to store the data in Kubernetes. I might want to store the data locally in my laptop, right? Like, doesn't matter. That's the point. The data.
The data is the point, but there are, if that's just me developing against a cluster local on my laptop, maybe. But then things get more complicated because Helm's a package manager. So if you've got a complicated setup with more than one location and it's different Kubernetes clusters, that's not a problem for Helm to solve, because Helm's a package manager for your cluster. That's for a higher level tool that manages things across different clusters. It's a package manager, right? It's like apt or zipper or yum or something like that. You would use a higher level tool to manage your more complexity, like like an Ansible or a Chef or a Puppet, a higher level tool. And we've got those kinds of things now, with Helm file, and there's the Flux Helm operator and things like that that work at that higher level for Helm packages. And so that's where we want to look at, is we want to make sure we keep Helm in that package manager space, yet it still needs to store some of that data on a per cluster basis. In fact, that local experience in your local development environment isn't where we run into issues with secrets, because you don't end up scaling so big. It's actually in those big, heavy environments that you run into it. But we do need to, Yeah, we do need to make sure that when you scale up, that simple complexity for environments that aren't big, that is the default use case that we need to make sure is handled really well out of the box. And when somebody scales up and is adding complexity, they're already having to deal with more complexity. So adding more complexity to Helm for them is where we want to do it. We want to keep the simple case easy to use with Helm, and not how do I put it? We don't want to optimize for the complex case. We don't want to optimize for the 5%. We want to optimize for the 80%.
All right. So there's a lot to talk about there. Joe, since this was one that you dropped into the discussion, I'm going to look to you to decide where you want to go with this. Like, is this going to be captured in an issue? Is there going to be a Helm improvement proposal to kind of
I'm gonna start with
change the way
opening
it's done? Is it going to be docs?
Yeah,
Like, so
I'm gonna start
I'm
with
going to
opening
toss
an
that back
issue.
to you.
Yeah, I'm gonna start with opening an issue, and we can throw
Awesome.
in
Then we can continue the discussion in there. Because
Yeah,
otherwise
Joe-
we could spend the entire call talking about that.
I just want to say, Joe, I think an issue is probably the best place to start, because I don't know what to tell you to put into a HIP yet. But in an issue, we can have the conversation and see what kind of improvements we can come to that could translate into pull requests or HIPs or whatever. So that's what I'd recommend.
Awesome. Okay, so then we have a topic that I dropped in, which is I noticed that there was an issue about hiding secrets, making it optional, an optional command line flag to hide secrets so that they wouldn't end up in your logs or, sprayed all over in your configs or whatever. And I noticed somebody did put in a pull request to work on that. And I wanted to know, is that because people were complaining about they perceived the default behavior to change between 2 and 3, and oh no, we can't go to 3 because secrets are getting stored places we didn't expect, etc. I'm wondering if that one is a blocker we should resolve quickly. Is that something that we can put that in the 3.6 milestone or have somebody evaluate it? I just wanted to bring that to people's attention, since I noticed there were a few people who were saying, oh no, we can't go to Helm 3 because of the way it handles secrets, and we need an option to hide it from our logs. So I just wanted to bring that up and see if that's one that people had thought about at all.
I have not thought about this at all. We should try to hide the secrets in our logs.
I mean, that sounds good,
It-
but there
it-
might be a reason not to. So anyway, I just want to make sure we looked at that while we're thinking about security, incremental patches and whatnot. Is this one that is low hanging fruit that could get more people onto Helm 3?
This would be, well, if it's in our logs, if it's showing up in logs, it's because of the way it's being output somewhere. And
Mhm.
so we should be smart about our output here.
Mhm.
And so this is not storing things so much in secrets, I don't think, as it
No.
as
It
it
just
is
is.
generating stuff and displaying it. Yeah,
Yeah.
we should look into this.
Cool. Who would like to test and evaluate this person's?
Yeah.
I heard a yeah. Does that mean Farina's going to look at it?
Maybe not this week.
All right. I want to bring that one to
I can take
everyone's
a look.
attention. Sorry, that was.
I can
Should
take
I?
a look.
Yeah, that would be great if you can test that and take a look at that, because I would love to make sure that people feel that Helm is safe for them. Okay, we had another item from Scott. Scott, fun question. Want to take it away with your fun question? Scott seems to have disappeared. All right, the question that he had was, what blockers would we have to revisit the idea of installing missing CRDs from the /CRDs dir at the version level? Your idea of fun and my idea of fun perhaps are different, but what do folks think?
When he says the version level, what do you mean, Scott? Are you there?
We may have experienced a Scott interruption.
Yeah.
We should probably wait until he comes back.
Yeah, because I'm curious what he means by the version level, because CRDs capture all version information in the same CRD. And so if they were all, each version was a different thing, that would make our lives a lot easier around this. But all the things are in one thing, which makes it hard.
In conclusion, thing. Yes. Okay. And then Mark isn't here, but I'm not sure we need him for this one. Discussion about, are we to the point of wanting a 4.0 milestone, or should we just keep using the label? We're not about to cut a release or anywhere near it, but like, yeah, just bringing that up. Should we have it as a milestone yet?
Good, I think.
It feels
doesn't
premature
hurt.
to me. It feels
Yeah.
early, but like, I'm good with the label, but
I think
it should not signify that Helm 4 is around the corner. We should be
yeah, I feel
careful
like
there.
having a milestone is like, ooh.
Yeah.
I would also say that if you have a milestone and a tag, they'll both end up out of date because somebody will put it into the milestone, some other folks will tag it, and then you'll have a mismatch. I just can see that happening. But by only having one way to mark it for Helm 4, then you're less likely to end up having a mismatch of two different lists.
Okay, so for now, at least, we're going to stick with the label for Helm V4 until we are much closer to wanting to have a milestone for it. Does that sound reasonable to people? I see some thumbs. Okay, Corinna, you had a topic about charts chat. I do not know the answer to that. Please ask us.
I was just thinking about that. I always have a standing conflict, and I keep trying to look at the notes, and the notes are never updated. So I was just wondering if that was actually still a thing. The biweekly charts chat.
It's not, and so it's not. It should be canceled. So I'm going to do that right now. That meeting hasn't been held since like 2019.
Okay. Thanks
So
for
there, I've
calling.
canceled it.
Was, other than just completeness, was there something specific you were looking to cover, Corinna, so that we can make sure whatever meetings we're having does cover the topic you're looking for?
I was ultimately, if we have people that are looking for help with charts, other than, there is the great chat in the Kubernetes Slack, right? And I was wondering if the charts chat was somewhere that I could direct people to, but it looks like no right now.
Yeah, I think there is the charts, like you said, channel on Kubernetes Slack, but I would imagine if the community there wants to start another meeting, nobody is going to stop them from having a meeting, but I don't think we have a specific chart, like a chart maintainer or other.
No, we've tended to have those meetings here, or they happen in chat somewhere when things happen, or the work that team's doing happens more in the projects and issue queues and things like that. If there's something to talk with them, you got multiple chart maintainers on this call right now, and there usually are. And if you want to have some kind of separate conversations around those, whether it's one-off or whatnot, we'd be happy to accommodate.
Okay, great. Do we have any other topics people want to talk about? Dan, I see you sitting there being quiet.
Hey, I just haven't been able to join in a while and wanted to plug in and see what was going on. And I haven't been able to actually do anything useful for Helm. So I mostly just wanted to sit here and shut up and soak up the brilliance and maybe hope that it rubs off.
There is a lot going on here, obviously.
I hear there's a book you can get too, Dan.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't have anything else, so I will say now is the time that we should find a moderator and someone to take notes and some heroic individual who would like to do issue triage for the week. We should find those things. Who would like to do those things?
Well, I can try to sign up for issue triage.
Okay. Farina
I
for
haven't
issue
been around
triage.
for a while. I'll participate.
How would you like to participate, Adam?
I'll moderate.
Excellent. And Corinna is going to do notes. So you are in great shape, folks. Would you all like 5 minutes to gather your thoughts before your next thing that starts in 5 minutes, 4 minutes.
I just want to thank Karina for doing notes.
She did an excellent job.
Well,
Yeah.
Far better than me.
today Jasper actually did them, and then she did them
Jasper?
before, and they've been
Okay.
doing a great job.
You all have been doing
Anybody-
it
Jasper's thorough.
Anybody
better
who
than
does-
I do.
Anybody who does notes is popular in my book.
It is hard work. Okay.
Right.
Thank you all, and we will chat with you same bad time, same bad channel next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.